everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how is it going?
Tony, it's one of our world-famous draft shows, and after absolutely annihilating you in the Black Stripe draft year after year after year, you suggested this, and I thought, you know what I should do to help my buddy Tony out? I should do no show prep whatsoever. And Tony, it's important to have a plan, and it's important to execute that plan. And Tony, I have executed that plan. What are we doing today?
Today, Tom, today is NFL Draft Day. First round of the NFL Draft is tonight. Marvin Harrison is going to go somewhere, hopefully to number 9 to the Bears, but probably well before that. So I thought, you know what? Let's do a draft. Let's say in honor of Marvin, let's draft 4 Ohio State receivers to pit against each other and 5 defensive backs, Ohio State defensive backs to pit against each other. And the way I'm putting this forward, it's as if we are playing Super Tecmo Bowl and Warren Moon is our quarterback. We are running the run and shoot, and we each need 4 receivers and then a secondary, 2 corners, a nickel, a strong safety, a free safety to combat that. And my original idea, Tom, was that, you know what, well, let's draft receivers first, and then we'll figure out how to strategize and who we want to defend those receivers. But you're like, no, I want to open this up to, I want to be able to pick whatever I want, whenever I want. It's like, okay, got to let the baby have his way. He has to, I may not put anything into show prep, but I'd like to change the show completely. It's like, perfect. That's what you do best, Tom. So, and this, we're not going to do a snake draft. We'll just go through and just boom, 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 because it's just 2 people, it's a bunch of positions. And I'm going to ask for a number between 1 and 7. And if you pick that number correct, you can draft first. Go.
You know what? I don't even want to take the chance, the 1 in 7 chance of getting the correct number. So Tony, I want you to go first. I want this to be your big day.
Well, the problem with this is a very, very difficult thing because there are some really, really good names. And of course, number 1, I'm taking JJ Smith. Now, if this was a dynasty league, like one of these developmental things, maybe then. But here's what I'm going to do, Tom, because I feel like this draft has 2 very good free safeties, so I can hold off there. I'm taking, as you might expect, and as you know I would, I'm taking Antoine Winfield as my nickel. And he is going to destroy anybody that lines up against him. So you may not, I'm sorry about your luck, but I did not expect to go Antoine Winfield first here because I thought I would go with receivers. But I will gladly take Antoine Winfield as my nickel. And Tom, it doesn't matter who else you take.
You know, I was so excited to steal Antoine Winfield away from you by taking him like 3rd or 4th and have you get the most mad, because I'm sure as longtime listeners of the show know Antoine Winfield is Tony's favorite Ohio State player ever. I was so looking forward to doing that, but okay. Well, you have denied me this small bit of joy. That's fine. This is already turning into a very pro Tony show. So that's all right. All right. So this is a challenge because it's like I could pick any of about 6 or 7 different Ohio State wide receivers and have people go, yeah, that's a great pick. Or like, why would you not have picked any of these 5 or 6 other guys? I think, Tony, and I realize I'm running the risk of recency bias here, but I feel like I kind of have to go Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1. I just think in terms of catching everything, big play ability, small area ability, he is probably the best all-around wide receiver we've seen at Ohio State. And, really, I'm going back to like the 90s, really. If you want to take someone off the, 1968, you want to take a split end off the 1968 team, like by all means, go ahead. But this is probably going to be a last 30 years-ish kind of draft. I'll take Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be taking a wide receiver who lined up in a 3-point stance. Thank you very much. That's how you tell the real men.
Doug Dunley.
So, Marvin, That I was also interested to see who would be the first receiver taken off the board, because I think that says a lot. And it's very difficult to go with somebody, like, other than him. If you just want to go ahead and get that guy and coast from there, Tom, and that's what you do. But since you have done that, and you've gotten arguably the best Ohio State receiver of all time, I in turn will completely negate him and make him a wasted draft pick by grabbing the greatest Ohio State cornerback of all time in Sean Springs. And now I have Sean Springs out wide. I have Antoine Winfield in the slot. Marvin Harrison, great guy, I'm sure, completely negated, will not get that second contract with your team because there will be no point. He will have 7 catches in his 4-year career. You're not even going to pick up the 5th-year option on this guy because of what Sean Springs is going to do to him. He may quit football after year 2.
2 guys who had fathers who played pretty high-level football as well. Yeah, that is a good pick. This is once again very irritating because you have now anticipated what I was going to do with my next pick and stolen that away as well. So now the question is, do I Lincoln Riley this draft and just load up on offense and say, like, that's fine. We'll just get Alex Grinch to call the defense. It'll be fine. Tony, I'm not going to lie to you. I am kind of tempted to go that route. Boy, and the problem is there's so many good. This is the challenge of the temptation to do that versus the temptation to, be more strategic about this. I'm going to. I don't even know who your wide receivers are, Tony, but I think the thing that I could do that would be the absolute best right now is to have. I don't know who your quarterback is. But at some point, he's going to overthrow someone. I think Malik Hooker should be back there, Tony. I think Malik Hooker, and let me tell you how hard I was concentrating to say Malik Hooker and not Marcus Hooker. That was a real moment of strong concentration there. Malik Hooker, I don't know how many touchdowns your guys are going to have. He's going to have like 7. So I think I'm already feeling better about this.
Tom, you made the correct pick because I was going to jump on Malik Hooker and just shut your entire offense down. In the middle of the night, the Mayflower truck would have shown up on your franchise and taken you to Baltimore or to Indianapolis, rather, wherever. It didn't matter because you're not doing anything against my defense. But that was a great pick because that was going to be my next pick. So now I feel like, you know what? Should I go get my second corner? But the number of corners that are still remaining are ridiculous. So I don't know if I need to jump on them right now. I don't want to give you names, but you've probably heard of these people before. Jeff Okudah, Malcolm Jenkins, Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, Jimmy Checkwell, Chris Campbell, Nate Clements, all former first rounders, all Americans. I feel like there's going to be some guys left over for me there. Might be time to start getting some offensive players. And I wonder, is it a tell if I go with this would be like the second receiver off the board and my first receiver, and I wonder, do I go get a guy that I want that I feel like he could drop, but if I don't get him, I'm going to be mad. But it's like if I just, I'm not even going to make eye contact with him, nobody will see me staring at him. How about if I go with the guy that used to be the best receiver in Ohio State history is David Boston. But his NFL career didn't turn out as planned, even though he did lead the league in receiving yards one year. Clearly, we expected more. His legacy has been somewhat tarnished a little bit. Or do I go with some of the younger guys, some of the more recent guys? I don't think you can go wrong with Garrett Wilson in this. So I think what I'm going to do, I feel like it'd be not a waste of a pick to go get my second corner right now, but I could and just go get the guy that I want. But I feel like I'll be happy regardless of what ends up happening there. So I think what I need to do is just shut up and take Terry Glenn. Give me my deep outside receiver, and after the catch, boy, there's a lot of guys on there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take Terry Glenn.
Yeah, that's a good one. That was probably going to be my next one. I don't know if you saw my eyes light up a little bit when you said David Boston, because I thought those are the next two guys off the board to me. And I was leaning Glenn. It's just, do you want the size or do you want the speed? And I think Glenn is a very defensible choice here. Again, he only had 1 year where he did anything at Ohio State, but during that year he set pretty much every Ohio State receiving record there was. So yeah, hard to argue with that one. I am going to make, I think, Tony, the one exception to my last 30 years-ish rule here. You're nodding, another guy who was part of a father-son duo at Ohio State. This time we're going to go with the father. We're going to go with Chris Carter, whose numbers are impressive. They don't stack up with the modern numbers, but I think what you have to do is you have to look at his numbers compared to everyone else during the era he played in. And his numbers are up here and everyone else's are like there. And if you put Chris Carter on a modern Ohio State passing attack, I think he's, especially with modern training standards, I think he's every bit up there with a lot of the other names we've named and are going to name moving forward. And as we know, Tony, all he does is catch touchdowns, and touchdowns, as we know, are worth points, which are good in football. So this feels like someone that is going to pair pretty nicely with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, and you had to go get somebody who will catch touchdowns because Marvin Harrison, as we know, will not be catching any. I feel like I fell into the trap of draft day bluster. You had mentioned that as we're starting the show, I'm just going to be picking guys from the last 30 years. You went 40 years back, Tom. I thought maybe you wouldn't, and I could just get Chris Carter later. This is what I get for reading the dirt sheets and reading, some agents are throwing crap info out there, and I bought it.
Texted Adam Schefter. There's a lot of smoke around Torrey in Washington and Tom's team. So, that's
really?
on you for believing it, Tony. I don't know what to tell you. It's the same thing every year.
So you're saying you want Torrey in Washington? Well, what if I take him right now? I also feel like
I would be so owned.
I think I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here because I do believe he's a top 5 receiver all time at Ohio State, can do anything. Again, we're running 4 wides. We're running run and shoot. So I need 2 slot receivers. Garrett Wilson can absolutely be a slot receiver. He can be an outside guy. I feel like I've got you on quickness. You got 2 big slow dudes. We're going to lock them down. I don't even know if I need another corner. I could probably just throw some safeties against you right now and be fine. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here. Feel pretty good about that. And really, these 2 guys, Terry Glenn, Garrett Wilson, both like 5'11", 6 foot, but can play much bigger than that as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about this one.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I think that's something that fits very nicely with what you're trying to do. I'm just as you're talking about him, and I'm thinking, who do I want to pick next? I'm thinking through the wide receivers, and I'm like, man, we are going to run out of wide receiver spots way before we run out of great Ohio State wide receivers over the last 30 years or so. So, yeah, we'll. I think that's a good pick. I'm fascinated with the idea that these guys are all just going to get locked down because they're too big and slow. Like it's worked pretty well at the college level and the pro level for some of these guys already. So, yeah, I'm still feeling pretty good about who I've got. However, Tony, I am going to take a guy to play in the slot, guy who I think one of those guys whose Ohio State career was both impressive and also one of the great what ifs. And boy, what if Jackson Smith-Njigba doesn't get hurt in that Notre Dame game in 2022? That feels like that swung that season more dramatically than just about anything else, because you look back now and CJ Stroud throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith-Njigba, and like, boy, that would have been a fantastic offense. And who knows what he would have done. He might have broken he might have broken a bunch of those old Ohio State records because he had 90 something catches or something like that
95.
In 2021, had that insane Rose Bowl, and then that was basically it for him, which is just really kind of a bummer. But good news, Tony, you'll be seeing a lot of him when he's playing for my team.
Well, I think what the words that strike me most are when you say that was basically it for him. What a bummer, because he will be matched up against Antoine Winfield. So that will be it for him. What a bummer for you, as you draft somebody he's okay quickness. He's not a super fast guy. He's not a super quick guy. And I'll have somebody who is super quick and super fast defending him. And honestly, if they went at it today, I would still take Antoine Winfield Sr. over Jackson Smith and Jigba. Line them up right now out on the field and lock down. You know, somebody that I'm not going to take, but I think would be an interesting look at the Urban Meyer H-back would be Michael Wiley, who began his career as a wide receiver at Ohio State, transitioned to running back, but a guy that could do many different things in that kind of offense. I think it would be interesting to watch back then or, a decade ago. I really probably need to start getting some help for my secondary. Not that they need it. I'm just saying right now they're outnumbered. That's all it is. When I look at all of these corners and I feel like I have an opportunity to do something here where I don't want to explain my strategy, but I'm probably only going to get one of these guys anyway. But I think Marshawn Lattimore in 2016 was as good as any corner I've ever seen play at Ohio State. Malcolm Jenkins was as good and consistent as any corner I've ever seen play at Ohio State throughout his career. So I think what I need to do is, again, you've got big, slow receivers. So I can take a bigger cornerback in Malcolm Jenkins. That physicality, I think, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Malcolm Jenkins, and people are going to say, he played safety in the NFL. He wasn't a good enough corner. Go watch him. And again, the guys he's going to be playing against on Tom's team, not really speed guys, not really threats. So I feel like Malcolm Jenkins is just going to bully them all over the place. And I feel good about that. But wow, I have the three best cornerbacks in Ohio State history on my team. Sean Springs, Malcolm Jenkins, and Antoine Winfield. And Tom, you've just got like a bunch of 3 stars.
Yeah. I rather notably don't have any corners right now, which the good news is, Tony, you've now filled up the corners, so now I can just wait. So you have fallen directly into my trap. So congratulations. Well done. You have very good corners. That's wonderful. Good for you. We'll see how it works out. I think I'm...
Will we?
I mean... Hey, we've seen Sean Springs slip before, am I right? These things, Tony, can happen. Strong safety is, I think, intriguing to me here because I don't know who all your wide receivers are going to be, but I know that no one's going to want to go over the middle against Michael Doss. So I think I'm going to take the 3-time All-American, pair him with Malik Hooker, and feel good about the fact that you're probably not going to be able to go over the top on.
I like that pick. I think there are concerns about Mike Doss playing in the modern game. More of the throw. I mean, this is almost 25 years ago now that he was playing. It's a different game, Tom. They throw the ball now. They didn't throw the ball back in 2000, 2001, 2002. They only ran the ball back then. You're going to have Mike Doss as a guy he's going to have to be matched up on some of these slot receivers. And no, I may not have any yet right now. Maybe Garrett Wilson is. But I really feel like this was a folly by you to go ahead and take Mike Doss. But now you've fallen into my trap where I can hold off on getting my strong safety and I can get off on holding my free safety, of which I only have like one guy listed at each spot. And no, you have no idea who they are. So now I can concentrate on receiver, and I feel like, boy, there are some really good names here. Can I get the 2 guys that I want? Can I do that? Because if I don't get the guy that I really want, I'm going to be angry. And if I take him now, then I'm probably not going to get the other guy that I want later. Although you do need to get some corners, so maybe you'll forget that you need to do that, and maybe you'll remember. I am going to go ahead, and I'm just going to go do this right now. Because if I don't get my other guy, I'll be fine. although I do need some size. So I am going to say, with my whole heart, go ahead and give me David Boston, the all-time leading receiver in Ohio State football history in terms of yards. Let's just get that one done. The greatest to ever do it in an Ohio State uniform, number 9. If people don't remember, go back and watch. He was a freak.
He was a freak, and he was just a player who there was just no one who matched up well with him. There was, I go back to the 1997 Michigan game when the Michigan defense was maybe one of the best I've ever seen. Charles Woodson was at the absolute peak of his powers, and David Boston toasted him and then backed into the end zone, holding out the football. There was a certain amount of swagger to David Boston's game back in the day. I think that play exemplified that pretty well. Yeah, he's a good pick. I really thought about it. I really thought about adding him there. Probably would have been the next guy I took, but yeah, that's a good one. Now, I'm torn between two guys who played together.
Oh.
And because I do want to go receiver, I do want to take that last one because there's no pressure on me to get a corner now because you're full. And I know you've talked about not having, too many big guys, not enough just elite, speed there. I mean, I am passing up a Super Bowl MVP to do this. But Tony, when I think speed, Tony.
Yeah.
I think Quinn Pitcock. No. I think Ted Ginn. And I just
wow.
I know he was not, he is not going to be one of the best receivers all around in Ohio State history. I think you could, I think if you were going to just go, who is the better wide receiver, you're going to take Santonio Holmes. But I think for what I need right now, I think I need a Ted Ginn. And Tony, we said special teams was part of this as well, right? Did I remember that correctly from your email?
And also, you have to draft one player who plays both sides of the ball. So I'm going to take Chris Campbell, and then you can take, I don't know, Rocco Pintello. You're talking about speed, and I sometimes overlook Joey Galloway, who I think is arguably the fastest Buckeye of all time, and played 30 years too soon, like 25 years too soon, playing in the early 90s for Ohio State, when really, if you put him in today's game, would be outrageous. And the fact that he's not going to be selected is a testament to that. That's not his fault. That's the era he played in. Because I am going with Santonio Holmes, who I think is one of the most underrated receivers in Ohio State history. He will be able to operate in the slot for me. I've got my Z. I've got my X with David Boston. I got Garrett Wilson and Santonio Holmes, who can do everything else. I've got the most versatile group of receivers that has ever been seen. Some people are saying they've never seen a group of receivers like this. Your receivers, fine. I'm looking at that Ted Ginn thing and or Jackson Smith and Jigba, and maybe Marvin Harrison has to move into the slot, which is, he's fine with that. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to cover him. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. I'm not worried about it, but I'm going to go with Santonio Holmes there. And he's a guy I wanted to take earlier, but I thought I could get, like, this is a value pick. I'm extremely happy with this one. And Tom, you should be both ashamed and embarrassed.
I really thought about it. I strongly considered him. I gave a couple of other guys some consideration, but yeah, I think he's just such a good all around wide receiver that I have no qualms about you taking him there. That's a very good pick. And you go through and you mentioned him as one of the most underrated receivers in Ohio State history. Michael Jenkins is another one who we didn't draft here, and Like it was one where just thinking through this, I was like, oh, we're not going to get to Michael Jenkins, are we? And yeah, we're not. There's just so many good receivers.
Chris Olave.
Paris Campbell was fantastic and set a bunch of records at Ohio State, and he was like, I don't know that he was even a consideration at any point. Terry McLaurin has turned into a pretty darn good pro. I don't know how far down the list he would be, but that's really a testament to just how good that wide receiver unit has been over the years. And Joey Galloway, you mentioned him earlier. He's another one where you would love to see him. Like, put Chris Carter and Joey Galloway on a modern Ohio State team. Put Ted Ginn on a modern Ohio State team. Boy, give me Ted Ginn and Dwayne Haskins playing together, and the arm strength and the speed, and the Ryan Day era play calling instead of the Jim Tressel era play calling. And boy, feels like some cool stuff might happen there. Or CJ Stroud, and either of those guys. Like, boy, that would be really fun. But time machines don't exist yet. When they do, number one, kill Hitler. Number two, Ted Ginn, welcome to 2024. You're going to love it. All right, so I have 3 corner spots to fill, and I have my 3 names, and kind of this is a little bit in no particular order because there's no pressure on me now. So I'm just going to go. I'll start with Jeff Okudah. Started the Cotton Bowl his true freshman year, was a really, really good, solid player his second year, and then was the fourth overall pick in after his junior year. That is the classic Ohio State elite cornerback trajectory. Just a fantastic player. Pro career has not panned out quite like they would have expected, but we're not drafting NFL careers here, Tony. We're talking about college careers. And I think Jeff Okudah is a very good start for me at corner.
I remember calling Jeff Okudah the first time he was really getting involved. We all referred to him as like a poor man's Sean Springs or poor man's Malcolm Jenkins. Not really a guy that you could really want on your team or really respect or count on. Sorry, that was my cat. But good enough for you. Not good enough for my team. Good enough for you. Congratulations on that. So now I got to get my safeties in here. And I'm okay with you taking Mike Doss. All respect. 3-time All-American, one of the very few. My strong safety is going to be Dante Whitner, who was one of the all-time best at blowing up screens. You're going to be throwing a lot of screens because you're not going to be able to get open downfield because of the lockdown on the receivers. So you're going to be trying to throw stuff behind the line of scrimmage. This is where my strategy has paid off. Dante Whitner going to be blowing up a lot of that. We know Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ted Ginn, not really tackle breakers. They're kind of first contact. They go down immediately. So I'm going to take Dante Whitner, and we're going to be perfectly good with that. Another first rounder, another All-American. Boy, this team is just loaded, Tom. And yeah, you've got some decent guys as well, but I'm seeing an FBS, FCS type of split going on right now, personally.
I love when we do these hypothetical ones and you get all cocky because you can't get proven wrong. It's not like the black stripe draft where it's just every year like, I don't know, how's it going to go? I don't know. Is Tom going to win again, or is it going to be Tom wins again? Is Tony going to lose again? Who knows? Like this is where you have an opportunity to shine, where you can't get proven wrong. And I think that's the important thing. This is your big day, buddy. We're very excited for you. Good job. Let's see. I'm going to go. Corner is another spot where you've got so many good choices left. And I mean, you talked about Marshawn Lattimore earlier, and I thought he's going to take Marshawn Lattimore, and then you didn't. And so that brought me great joy because I'm going to take Marshawn Lattimore. I think I'm going to stick him in the slot, and we're going to see how that goes. Yeah, I think that's going to be a good spot for him. I think one of those guys who, in the parade of great Ohio State corners, probably doesn't quite get the respect that he's due. Just kind of, he was just sort of in the middle of the line of all the first round corners. And when you're thinking through that list, I don't think he gets named as high up as he probably should. So we'll take him. We'll stick him in the slot. And which one of your receivers is he shutting down? Who are you playing inside?
Well, and that's the thing. I'll probably have Garrett Wilson and Santonio Holmes inside. So good luck with that. Fine player. Never really did it for me. not somebody that I could ever trust to put in my secondary. Certainly not at nickel, where I have Antoine Winfield, the one person you could trust with your life. Like, if I was a truck driver, Tom, and I had to drive across a lake of ice, that we see on the TV, and I had got like food poisoning, and it's like, I'm not going to be able to make this before the ice melts. And I'm like, Garrett or Antoine Winfield, can you do this for me? Can you drive me across the ice? And he'll be like, I don't know how to drive a semi truck. I've never done this before. I would look at him and say, I trust you. And then he would do it. That's the kind of faith that I have in Antoine Winfield Sr. My final pick here, I got to go get a free safety. Free safety, depending on what you consider that, Von Bell was an All-American. I'm going with one of the most underrated defensive Buckeyes in Ohio State history. Very, very important part of the 2002 defense. A All-American in the 2003 defense. Will Allen, a productive, solid, dependable guy, shows up week after week, doesn't disappear for long stretches of time like much of your team. So that's my final guy, Will Allen, as my free safety. I like it.
I like it too. You said you had two free safeties in mind, and I thought, I bet I know who the other one is. And I was right. And he has a lot of the same stuff that you loved about Malik Hooker, where just you need to play, guy's got to make a play. He's going to get a turnover, he's going to make a play in that big moment. That was Will Allen. If you were not old enough to remember Will Allen playing for Ohio State, it was just fast forward to the first 58 minutes, and 45 seconds or so of the game, and then go to the very end, and then that's when Will Allen's going to make the play that sealed the game. He did that against Michigan in 2002, had an interception at the goal line, had a big interception against, he had the tackle at the goal line in triple overtime against North Carolina State. Am I missing any?
Those are the two big ones, but that wasn't all, I'm sure. But yeah, those are the two that immediately come to mind and they're stuck there, basically.
Yeah, he's a great pick. Another guy who I think would categorize as underappreciated, maybe a little underrated, overlooked, but was just an absolute heart and soul of those teams. And yeah, that's a good one. All right, so my last one, there are a lot of possibilities here for my last corner position. I think, Tony, as I always say, you have to trust the NFL talent evaluators. So I'm going to just sort of default to, I say it all the time, Tony, they're so good at their jobs. Never miss a pick. I'm going to default to the NFL talent evaluators who had Denzel Ward as a number 4 overall pick and go with him. Just, great overall, really solid player. Again, very similar to the Jeff Okudah career track, where you had the first year, it was like you saw little bits and flashes. You saw the second year, and then the third year was just boom, off to the NFL. Frankly, I was surprised at how long I thought about including Denzel Burke here. I don't think, he's not there yet. I think if we have this draft in a year, Denzel Burke might be on my team if he has the 2024 that I think he could. He's not there yet, but he's had the 3 really good years where, after the third year, he was probably like late first, early second. I think he might be a guy who is a top 10 type pick in a year, maybe top 5, where he is in this conversation. I had his name in the back of my mind because I was like, I don't think he's there yet, but I think he could get there at some point.
Yeah, I would agree. And, we'll see if Caleb Downs can make that list next year as well. As I'm looking through this, and we have it finalized now, you have 2 guys that weren't first rounders. Chris Carter was, of course, a supplemental draft pick. Mike Doss was a second rounder. I have 1 guy who was not a first rounder, and that's Will Allen, who was, I think, a 4th rounder for the Steelers. Overall, though, I think he did a solid job. Very unspectacular, but workmanlike. Everybody here is wearing boots. That's another reason why they're so slow, perhaps. And that's why they're easy to cover, because they're wearing boots. Maybe get them in some cleats, and maybe we'll make it an even fight. Still wouldn't be an even fight though, because again, you look at my secondary: Sean Springs, Malcolm Jenkins, Antoine Winfield, Will Allen, Dante Whitner, all Americans. So good luck with that. Whereas you got guys like Malik Hooker, who? Mike Doss, what? Marshawn Lattimore, please. Jeff Okuda, no thanks. Like, you spent how much time preparing for this show? It shows.
Listen, no one out prepares me in the draft room. This was basically that draft day movie, just without Kevin Costner with me instead. So I assume that made it better.
I wouldn't know. I can't stand most sports movies or sports TV shows. I may have said this before, Tom. I don't buy actors as sports people. I buy them as doctors and astronauts and things like that. Can't buy them as sports people. It's just not believable. But throw a pen in a trach, that looks real. Trying to talk about your draft board, fake. So fake.
Yeah, it's like when you're watching a movie about a subject you know a lot about, and it's like that. No, all of this is wrong. Like anytime they do a movie about like TV news or like any kind of live TV stuff, I'm like, no, that's not even close to how any of this works. And it's like, but based on what I've seen in several cinematic masterpieces, I could definitely either land an airplane or perform some sort of emergency surgery because I've seen it done, Tony. How hard could it be?
How much do you think doctors and lawyers hate how much TV we have seen about doctors and lawyers, and patient is like, well, have you thought about my thyroid? And the doctor's like, look, it's your leg. It's the thigh is not that the thyroid and the thigh are two very different things. Like, wow. That's not what Honey Boo Boo said. Anyway,
this is not a movie. It was TV, but Tony, I can tell you it's never lupus. That I can tell you for sure.
All right, let's get out of here. Thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy the draft tonight. Next year is going to be a completely different kind of wild draft night for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we'll talk about that later on down the road. But again, if you have not yet liked this video on YouTube, please do so. We would appreciate that. Any 5-star ratings and reviews you'd like to give us on the podcast, that is also music to our ears. And of course, find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We will see you there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.